All right. I'm going to maybe jump off a building. Keas is going to talk me out of it. Give us 15 seconds to find out what happens. Yes! Yes! Guys, Keas talked me off the ledge. So, Keas, welcome, brother, man. How is your day going, brother?
Hey, it's going a lot better than yesterday as a whole. So,
oh man. I was on the Luke G show about a month ago. I told him that I did not expect the Chiefs to win. I got a lot of trash talk from Lions fan, and you know what happened? I let it get to me. It got underneath my skin a little bit, and you know what I did is right before the game, I put an extra $100 down on the Chiefs. I didn't even share that with you until this moment right now. So for the rest of the year, I'm not betting on football because I let my emotions affect my logic, and it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. So no more betting for the rest of the year. You got to have mind over heart, I think is what it is. I got to be able to control your emotions. I tell you guys, don't bet on your favorite team. Be smart when you bet logically. And what do? I let the Lions fans get underneath me. I predicted a 41-23 victory. I didn't even think it was going to be close. And what happened? The Lions came out and won. Barbie Lions. You underestimated. Yes, I did. Keas did not. Keas thought it was going to be a very good, very close game, and he was correct. MVP of the game was Kadarius Toney. Had one touchdown and no receptions. So that's pretty impressive. I'm mad about that. I'm mad about that. Keas, let me get somebody else's input who didn't lose a couple $100 on the game here. Keas, tell me, man, give us your input. Thank you so much for joining here.
Yeah, Dan, and it goes back to another one of your rules, right? Is don't tip the Berthas. Right? You're paying their hourly rate. You don't give them a tip on top of that. That's what Dan always says. So you got to stick with your own advice there, Dan.
Oh, man. I tell people, use your brain, use logic, use reasoning. And what do? I get all emotionally invested, and I lose money that you're saying I'm going to use on either Berthas or cocaine. So.
Yep. So you know what? I can go off of whatever you want here. I have my notes typed up from the game. So I don't know if you have any leading questions along those lines, or you just want me to just start talking.
You know what? Let's read some of these comments here because, we got Luke told me to come here. Adam Bedum's son. I don't know who that is. But, I'm going to join Luke G hopefully Monday. I got a big heaping pot of crow to eat. And, I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not gonna lie, man. But I gotta do it. I told Luke I would. I'm grateful to Luke because he's come on the show, brought a lot of Lions fans, brought a lot of love to my channel, and I think the world of Luke G. So I got to go on his show. I got to eat some crow. 9 Drinks says, "Who's your daddy?" Yes, and Kadarius Toney is my daddy. LMAO, One Pride, welcome, brother. Yes. Tim says, me too. I was right about the Lions getting that dub too. You were right, One Pride. One Pride DM'd me. By the way, all my social media link is on the bottom. You can be like One Pride. You can DM me. Luke is actually, I think he's still live on his channel. I'll be on his show ideally Monday, and I'm going to eat a bunch of crow. Gavin Carson says, let's go Lions. You got sunned. So Dan, how about them Chiefs? Corey, aka the Red Sea. Yes, it's not good in Chiefs Kingdom, and I know you're a Gators fan, and Lions MVP was a Florida Gator, ex-Florida Gator, Cardarius Toney. How about them Lions? Yeah, Alex, man, welcome, brother. Football season's right around the corner. Yes, I got a lot of crow to eat. Me and Keys are going to go into detail about that. Yes. Tim is still having. You about to get. I deserve it. Keys, on the other hand, predicted a very close, tight game. I predicted 41-23, even without Kelsey, even without Chris Jones. And it did not happen. It did not happen. Your Chiefs will be fine. In fact, we shook the Hornets' nest. You know what? I'm going to have UCF Jaguar come on Tuesday. We got a lot to talk about. That's going to be a good show. Dr. Detroit, what happened? Dan, you guys won. I know it's a new feeling for you guys, this winning thing. But yeah, great win. We're going to go into detail. I'm going to get some logic here from Keys. Keys is here. I'm all emotional and angry. Keys is going to bring me back down to earth. I was getting ready to jump. He's like, Dan, we're going to do a show. Oh, yes. Well, you know, I wouldn't say I was smashing the Lions, but I thought the Chiefs were here. I thought the Lions were here, and I could not be more wrong. And I do. The Lions did make a statement. Would they win? Yes, they did. I mean, you know, I predicted an 18-point victory. I before E, but that's okay. The C's are red with Chiefs blood. Hutch was using I don't know if he did that good against the tackles, but he beat up Trey Smith. Great game by Aiden Hutchinson, the legit Lions MVP. Hatter's House 710. Go Lions. Woo! Luigi. Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to be on his show too. I had the Chiefs by 7. I was telling some folks that the Lions are I was thinking they're going to be like a 9-10 win team. They look a lot better. But yeah, I had 41-23. Tim can do math. Send me the link. Dan, you want to come on? All right. We will invite Luke G on. Luke, I am going to send this to you via Instagram. So we were not planning on this, but we will invite Luke G on. And you know what? I'll eat crow on my own show. Why not? I will ask one thing, Luke, is that Keys was giving me Luke. He was very adamant that this is going to be a close game. I was not. So I will ask that you go easy on Keys, but make me eat some crow. Dan, what is your right tackle? Does he need you know what? I didn't notice it that much, but Lions fans kept on showing it after the game. And that's something that we'll get from Keys here, because I didn't notice it during the game. I mean, Hutch is at just Lions fans are talking about that. You think the Seahawks should be afraid to play us? Absolutely, but I mean, Seattle's got a tough divisional rival game with the Rams. We're going to go over all the remaining 15 games. So, is Nagy still better? My argument was that Matt Nagy's a better offensive coordinator than Ben Johnson, simply because Ben Johnson's only been in the NFL for 1 year. I think that's too little of a skill set. But you know what? I've been just ranting. Keys, interject some logic here with me, man. Tell me about the game. Give us your opinion, because I'm all emotional here.
Hey, yeah, you know, and I got a lot too. And I had this game, kind of in my mind, it was going to be kind of like that. Was it 2019 Rams Chiefs 54-51 kind of shootout game?
Yeah.
And you know, I don't think I'm saying anything surprising here, but I think it was surprising for most of us. I think that the defenses were farther along than we expected, and this was much more of a defensive battle. You know, I got a lot of thoughts on this game. I had it a 3-point game ish, right? And that was back when I was expecting Travis to play and I was expecting Chris Jones to play. And so, you know, I don't feel bad about this game. And for the most part, I understand where Lions fans are now, because unlike you, Dan, I've been all over the spectrum of fandom. And I spent a lot of time being a bad fan. I've spent a lot of time being an immature fan. And, you know, it's been the last 5, 6, 7 years with other really good fans to look up to that I've had to kind of mature myself. So, you know, I kind of understand where a lot of Lions fans are right now, but I'll just caution you guys, are you going to make one of these hats for this game? You know, because I understand it's easy to make this into a big deal, right? But we see this every year. You know, we saw it with the Raiders 2 or 3 years ago when they were trash. They won an Arrowhead. John Gruden famously did a victory lap around Arrowhead in the team bus after the game. Then the next time they played, they got curb stomped. You know, we saw it with the Colts last year with a fluke win. You know, we see at least one of these every year. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily a fluke. So don't hear me say that. I'm just saying, like, there are fan bases who get to celebrate beating the Chiefs every year. It happens 2, 3, sometimes 4 times in a season. So, and sometimes they're even really bad. The Lions aren't really bad, right? Last week on your show, I picked them to be in the Super Bowl, this game to be a rematch in the Super Bowl. So I'm not saying that. I have them in my top 3 teams easily, and I still think they're there because in some ways this was just as impressive as I was expecting from them. And you're going to add Jameson Williams at some point to this offense, which is going to make them even more awesome, even more fun to watch. This is week 1. And so, you know, and again, I wasn't expecting either defense to be this ready this early. So, you know, and it was kind of bittersweet for me I want to root for my Hawkeyes, you know, Sam Laporta and Jack Campbell, who made a hell of a play that probably had a pretty decent impact, that one play that Jack Campbell made on the game. So, you know, I want to root for those 2 guys. And, you know, I think that defense is still going to be good. And I think that Bears fans, Packers fans, Vikings fans, probably a lot of teams fans are going to be respecting the Lions this season. But I will say this, because, I mean, you have to acknowledge, right? I was really impressed with the Chiefs' offensive line against the Lions' defensive line. I know there's some uneducated, some people who haven't been watching games, but what Jawan Taylor did, he was doing last year with the Jaguars. What Jawan Taylor did, Lane Johnson did all last season and seasons before. How he was lined up, you can go back, you can watch Bengals games, you can watch Bills games, you can watch Eagles games, you can watch all kinds of games. And I even put this on Twitter. You can go back to the AFC Championship 2018, Mahomes and Brady. You can look at the Patriots offensive line. Their tackles were not on the line of scrimmage. They were just as far off back in that game. So we're going back 5 years now, right? This is nothing new. The only thing that's new about it is the interesting spin that NBC was putting on it by, one, having an opposing away team's parents in the stands and mic'd up for a game, and like making Agent Aiden Hutchinson like a huge spectacle. And so then you got to shed light on things to point out Jawan Taylor doing what he's always done, what Lane Johnson does, what other offensive tackles have been doing. So I was impressed with the offensive line, but you pointed out Trey Smith, he did get destroyed by Aiden Hutchinson, and you have to give credit to Aaron Glenn and that defensive coaching staff for the adjustments they made. You know, I don't know if their strategy will be to move those guys around, try to identify a weak point, or, you know, if they're just wanting to attack the guards, like what the strategy will be throughout the season. But if I'm a Lions fan, I'm excited about that. You know, that's the kind of coaching that gets me excited when you see that, because things weren't working, but they didn't stop. They kept moving him around. They would put him and James Houston on the same side. You know, they were doing everything that they had to do to try to create that conflict, that matchup that was advantageous to them. So, you know, to me, you tip your cap to them. On the opposite side, you know, a lot of respect for the Lions offensive line, but I felt the Chiefs very young, very inexperienced, very lacking of talent, still did pretty good. You know, I can go off my paper here where I have my numbers, but Chiefs defensive line, Chiefs allowed 2.31 yards per carried in their base defense. That's pretty dang good. 2.31. It didn't seem like that at times, but you know, again, that's in the base defense. So, you know, there's a lot to me to take out of it, because people were expecting, with Chris Jones out, you know, a lot of Chiefs fans were expecting Detroit to score 35, 42 points, 45 points, and just run the hell out of our defense and embarrass us so bad that Brett Veach would be on his hands and knees and saying, hey, here's $50 million a year. Get back on the field. We desperately need you. And that's not what we saw. What we saw is that the Chiefs desperately needed Travis Kelce back. And, you know, I don't know how much that has to do with Kelce, more than it has to do with Spags had all of training camp, all of preseason to plan for the defense without Chris Jones on it. And, you know, specifically the Lions offense, whereas Andy Reid and Matt Nagy had 2 days, right? Travis got injured Tuesday, and they still didn't know whether he was going to play or not Thursday morning. You know, they put him through that test in the water. And so 2 days. And I think that's the bigger thing with the wide receivers we have. I understand you're blaming Kadarius Toney for this game. And, you know, this is an area PFF will back you up. I think his PFF grade was like 29 point something there. So
you know how I feel about PFF.
Well, they agree with you. So
I wouldn't have given him a 29. There's no way. That's like 29 points too high.
It's one of their lowest scores I think they've ever given a receiver. But the interesting thing about it is, so he was that bad at catching the ball, but he was also the only receiver who was getting separation. He had the second best separation of anybody on either team in the game. With let me see if I can find the stat here. He averaged 3.1 yards of separation in this game. 3.1 yards. So he had 5 targets, 1 run on 16 snaps. If he holds on to the ball, you know, it's a little bit of a different story, because he was getting the separation. He was about the only guy who was getting the separation. The offensive line was giving Mahomes 4 or 5 seconds. The guys just weren't there who were able to separate, and the guys who could weren't catching the ball that great. Outside of that really impressive MVS catch that, you know, I told you were ahead on the live stream last night, so I had the volume. I heard you say interception, and I was turning the volume down.
It looked like a pick at first, and
I turned the volume down, and I was mad. And my wife says, "Hey, that was a catch. That wasn't an interception."
Yeah, I kind of botched the ball here. I got behind on comments here. How do you guys? We're all going to talk about this. I'm going to go through some comments, and if you haven't noticed on screen, we got Luke G in the Luke G Field Review. Welcome, Luke.
Give me my theme music.
Thanks for demonetizing my video, Luke.
They won't demonetize that. Listen, people. Listen. I told Dan that I will be here, rain, sleet, or snow, win, lose, or draw, come hell or high water. and I made sure I showed up. I brought him a good old bucket. It might look like a damn dump truck, but it's there for you.
I got to come on your show. I apologize. I couldn't make it earlier today.
No, it's cool.
One Pride. I'm going to come back to this. I'm a little behind on comments. I want to talk about that.
And it's a number of things. It's a number of things that was said as I sat here and patiently listened to it, that I'm about to debunk and destroy on so many levels, because I think that there's perspective in everything that you say. I love the idea that Chiefs fans were hoping that we would come in and run the ball and do these things. And you know what? This particular Lion fan, myself, thought the same thing. And it wasn't because you guys stopped us from running. It's because we just never committed to the run. And when we did, you still couldn't stop it. And that was a huge difference. I thought this game came down to so many things. I know Dan was saying things like Matt Nagy's a better coordinator than Ben Johnson. And Ben Johnson called a terrible game. He called a terrible game. But when it mattered, there was nothing worse than the weird trick play that you attempted to run that I'm still confused on what that was. Happy you called it, but I was confused on what it was. And I looked at the Kansas City Chiefs and I just said to myself, yeah, this is what happens when most of your money is wrapped up into two, 3 players on offense. Your defense really did not do much of anything. I think the Lions shot themselves in the foot more often than not. And there was a number of opportunities due to the crowd noise where there was a missed snap that bounced off of Brockers and Jared Goff fell on the fumble. There was the fumble by Marvin Jones where they was getting ready to score there. Those are 2 huge mishaps. I agree. I don't think that Tony should be the one that everybody put their attention on. I'm sorry, but I think Patrick Mahomes didn't have his best game. A lot of those passes were behind his receivers, and he was under duress. Those tackles didn't do as well as people are trying to portray them to be. In fact, they held them the entire time. There's multitudes of plays where you can see Aiden Hutchinson working the mess out of them. You can see Houston working, and they just flat out tackled them. If you go back and look at every play that Patrick Mahomes made where he took off and ran, I guarantee you, if you look at it, you will see somebody getting choked out at the line of scrimmage because they could not stop the people from getting through. We kept constant pressure coming. And when you flip it and you look at the defense of Kansas City, who couldn't generate no pressure whatsoever to get near our quarterback or stop the run in the second half, yeah, it was going to be different. My only regret is, and again, Mitchell, that's the name, right? Did I say it right? The gentleman who's just talking.
Keas.
He was talking about how people have been lining up like that for the longest. Rex Ryan disagrees with you. The other official who came on TV and made a statement disagrees with you. As long as I ever played football, once you're set, you're set. You can't lift your foot up and down like he was doing repeatedly.
Hey, Luke, I'm going to stop you right here because this was something that's been all over Twitter for the last year and a half or so by actual NFL players who were sick of fans tearing Lane Johnson apart about it. He does the same thing and he does it better. So you're absolutely wrong there.
Listen, I'll tell you like this. If you believe that and you feel good about it, it doesn't negate the fact that football head coaches and people who played this game know that you cannot be that far off. He wasn't. I can show you clips and footage of where his foot is so far back, it don't make no sense. And outside of that, scratch where he was lined up part, half the times when he got beat, he just pulled our guy down or he literally just held him. And the referees overlooked it. There was a play where Patrick Mahomes should have got called for intentional grounding. Never got out of the box, just threw the ball. Wasn't on over there but Lions jerseys. They didn't call that neither. And the reality is that game was the way it was officiated and the reason these things were brought up and they were discussed. Those same people could talk about Lane Johnson and talk about Lane, and say Lane Johnson did that. Yeah, good luck. But I got NFL coaches and so many other sources who say that's BS. You cannot do that. That's not how it works. That is not how the rules work. And those officials missed it, and it's big time issues. And the reason people are making a big stiff about it is because it keeps happening, and officials keep letting it slide, and it's not going to work. Now, I guarantee you this much. As much as you want to try to downplay that, he got worked all day by our D-line. Your guards got worked all day. Your center that I was told was better than Frank Ragnow got dog walked by Benito to the quarterback who then held him. And every single thing that they did that they did to try to stop us from touching y'all quarterback was a violation. So I'm not trying to downplay it to make it seem like this is not the case, but every person going into this game had the Chiefs winning. They treated it like the Lions were a team that shouldn't have been on the field with them. And not only did they do it that way, but the Lions came in there, kept their composure, and they made the plays where it mattered the most. The reality is had they committed to the run, the score wouldn't even been that close. They just didn't commit to it. Now, I will agree with you on this, Keys, when you said about the Aaron Glenn. The adjustments he made and all the things that happened, cool. But to me, Kansas City, whether Kelsey was there or not, I feel like if your quarterback played better, we're not having this conversation. But he didn't. He had a lot of passes that were behind the receivers. He had a few passes that should have been an interception. I don't know how we dropped those. The one interception we did get for the pick six that went up the hand of the receiver, okay, I give you that. But at the end of the day, there were other plays that he could have made and he didn't. There's the play where the intentional grounding happened. I'm like, this can't go. And he was the one who was rallying his head coach, who, in my opinion, should have told him, no, we're not doing this on 4th and 20 to go for it. Like, who does that? Andy Reid should have told him, I don't care what you're talking about. We're not doing it. And even after you got the penalty then, because they finally decided to call it as it was supposed to be, on 4th and 25, you can see him walking off the field, waving his arms, saying, come on, let's do it again. And in terms of trying to get them to go for it on 4th and 25. So, the fans can look at a number of different things, but the Lions left more bad plays out there than what you guys had. We had people out as well, and the difference is this. Even Dan, just as recent as, I want to say Tuesday, Dan, would you say that score was going to be 40?
I said 41-23.
Yeah. And with the way that game went, we could have easily won that game 41-23, but we just didn't commit to the run. You guys could
look. No,
now you're getting insane,
and I'm going to eat some crow, and I'm more than happy to. But bottom line, Tony catches a couple plays that the ball hits him in the hands. Chiefs win.
Okay, so listen.
That's a fact.
So
listen.
Hold
on. We're going to go to this next question here. How do you guys feel about this loss? I want to hear from somebody else besides me. Keys, how do you feel about this loss? We'll come back, but I do want to get to this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good. I was laying out, a good chunk of my case back and forth. I think there are so many things in this game that make it interesting. And, we can talk about it week one, but if there is a Super Bowl matchup, none of this is going to matter anyway, because so many things are going to change by then. But, this was such an interesting game, and it was a 1-point loss that there were so many things that one play here or there, and Luke talks about 4th and 25. I can talk about 4th and 2 at your own 18 on the second drive of the game. If that gets stopped there, I think Lions fans are questioning Dan Campbell a lot more, but I see those two kind of plays very similarly. But, again, I think there's so many things here. You see all these Chiefs receivers, basically Travis Kelce is the training wheels, going back to 2021, this game had the third most amount of drops in a Patrick Mahomes quarterback game, third most by his receivers in 3 years. So, that says something. And Travis was probably on the field that day. We know Tyreek probably was on the field that day. But these kids are young, and I think the plan was always to have Travis as kind of the training wheels as they were brought along. And, we saw Travis got hurt. You got 2 days to, make a different adjustment. It is what it is there. But, I think the biggest thing for the offense outside, and Dan, I know you're mad at Kadarius Toney. You lost some money, and he's kind of the scapegoat here. But, again, I want to give credit to Aaron Glenn again, because, and I got the numbers here.
I do want to get to that because I want to know what Luke G's opinion is of this.
All right. So you want Luke to answer, or you want me to finish what I was saying?
Please finish.
All right. So, again, you got to give credit to Aaron Glenn, because last year the Lions led the league, and even in this preseason, the Lions led the league in cover 1 percentage. But in this game, they ran split field coverages 54% of the time. So they completely switched things up for this game. So, it didn't matter what Andy and Matt and everyone else were watching on film. Aaron Glenn just completely threw it out of the book, threw the book out for this game. And so, you have that in there as well. So, kudos to him. I think he did a good job there. And I think with all the different factors in there, things added up.
I do. I want to say this, and Luke, I'm going to let you rant here, but Crimson Shadow 94 says, "Hey Dan, did AG called us back?" And I'm going to tell you something. I was adamant that the Lions should have fired him, and I kept on saying it. And I said, this is why I think Minnesota wins the North, because they went out and did what the Lions should have done. And Aaron Glenn proved me wrong. I mean, that was a phenomenal job on defense. Forget the drops. Forget not having Travis Kelce in there. 20 points at Arrowhead. A+ job. And of all the things I was wrong about, at least for week one, Aaron Glenn. Luke, tell me, man. I was adamant that this was a mistake, and I even said on your show that, hey, come bye week, he may get fired here. So I mean, Crimson Shadow 94, you are correct.
But he didn't. But the reality is this. Many times what happens is we all have teams that we like. You guys like Chiefs. I like Lions. I like a few other teams too. But the reality is the teams that we like, we study harder than others. The difference with me is I tend to look at the games a little bit different. I look at them in terms of matchups and things like that. And the reality is this. I said to myself, okay, if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, how would I go about beating the Lions? And I said, well, I would run the ball. But then I thought to myself, well, it's Andy Reid. And Andy Reid never commits to the run like he's supposed to anyway, so I don't have to worry about that. So they're going to pass the ball. But then I started to say to myself, well, what's different? Well, we have a better secondary. What I would not or could not have even thought would happen would be our D-line whooping y'all offensive line up like that. They really did a number on y'all. And it was very telling. And the reality is when things were going bad, there were a lot of Lion fans who was ready to load up the golden gun bullet for Aaron Glenn and say, see, it's all Aaron Glenn's fault. And I'm like, it's not Aaron Glenn's fault. It's not that. The players need to execute better in these situations. Like you sit there, you get a stop to make it 4th and 2, and then you go and take the penalty to make it 3rd and 17, and you give up 34-yard pass. And just like you, I thought it was an interception as well. I'm like, oh, that's an interception. I'm like, oh my God, that got in there. Okay. Right. But you can't give that play up. And the shoulda, woulda, ifs and fifs, we'll all be drunk. The reality is Aaron Glenn and what he done with that defense wasn't necessarily going to be telling, because our offense was kind of stagnant. If you would have told me that we would have only scored 14 points and there wasn't like much that you guys did outside of the fumble, I'd have said, yeah, that's BS. The Lions should have easily won by more points than that. The problem is I believe that too often when looking at the coordinators for the Lions and looking at what Kansas City did and stuff, when you do the shoulda, woulda game, we can now go back and look at all the other shoulda, wouldas, and it definitely changes a narrative differently. So, yeah, I know you thought that Aaron Glenn was the whole problem. It's only week 1, but I didn't think that at all. I know you also said by bye week we could only have, 1 win? Well, if that one win,
I said that you could be 4-4. I think you could be 3-4 going into that Monday night football game against the Raiders, which I thought was really key. But after getting this win, it doesn't look like it's going to be key at all. But I had you guys going 1-3 the first 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, you had us going 1-3.
1-3.
Yeah. But you had us beating the Falcons, not Kansas City.
I thought you might beat
the Falcons.
So here's what I got. You have 2 home games against Seattle and Atlanta. I originally I had circled because I think Green Bay is out for blood week 4, and I had this as a definite loss. I got to rethink everything.
Do you believe in Jordan Love?
I have the Packers out for blood. I normally don't believe in revenge games, but I think Green Bay fans, coaches, and players got that week 4 game circled. And don't be surprised if that ends up being a good game. I do want to talk about this because both One Pride and Gavin here brought this up. And I want to hear this from Luke. I'll start off with Luke, and I want to go to Keas next here. Was Gibbs underutilized?
Yes. Listen. The same way y'all had no answer for Amon-Ra St. Brown, you had no answer for Gibbs. And it's so crazy because just to give you a general idea of it, right? What would you say was his longest run? Like, what would you say Gibbs' longest run was? Like, if
I'm correct, he had 7 carries. I think his longest run was 13 yards.
18 yards.
Okay, it was
18 yards.
I remember the play.
So he had 7 carries for 42 yards. He was averaging about 6 yards a pop. And so the thing is, you guys really didn't have an answer for it. And it was just like, yo, they didn't run him enough. Like at all. Which ironically, if you look at the rushing total for both games, we had 118, but obviously, you know, we took 5 kneels, which really just took a lot of our numbers down too, and brought the carries up in terms of that. But take those 5 out, you're talking a game where you have 29 carries for about 119 yards versus, you know, you guys' rushing attack where y'all couldn't get nothing going. I thought that, in all honesty, that y'all should have ran the ball more often too if you was going to attack us, but y'all didn't. And so he not only was he underutilized, when you saw each play that he had, there was a few plays where I was like, oh, that should be a loss. And Gibbs ran through those tackles. He made things happen. And I was like, wow, he made that guy miss. He made that guy miss. And it was so grossly underutilized, it didn't make no sense. I remember yelling at the TV for the whole game, just run the dang ball. I kept screaming that because you guys really wasn't doing a good job stopping it. And when we started getting going, every time we would call a play action, I watched them linebackers sprint up to the line of scrimmage. And we would hit the tight end, or we would hit Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, yeah, they underutilized them. And the sad part is this. I hope it don't happen the next week. You know, in the past, what the Lions would do, they'd do an even split. You know, they'll do an even split with the running backs, and I hated that. This one, it was more the David Montgomery show than it was the Gibbs. But I really think if they gave the ball to Gibbs more often, yeah, we would have ran y'all out the whole entire building.
Well, let me ask Keas here, man, because I want to get your opinion here. Did they underutilize Gibbs or?
Yeah, I was expecting more, and it wasn't, you know, just the stuff that they had out there about the plan that they had for him. Like I understand, you know, why they had Montgomery out there, but I was expecting more of Gibbs, and I was expecting to see him more. But I do think overall the rookies, they had a specific plan, and they were really helping them get their feet wet, which I think is going to help them as the season goes on. But I am going to correct Luke here because the rushing difference in this game was 28 yards on 11 attempts more. That's it. 28 yards on 11 more attempts.
The difference is you can't correct me on that because that you would be wrong. Most of y'all rushing yards came from a quarterback who took off and ran. Your running backs did absolutely nothing. And if you go through and you want to tell me about your rushing and tell me about it, 45. Y'all had a total of 23 rushing attempts and 90 yards. That means that take away the 45 yards that came from Patrick Mahomes, where I clearly saw on at least 2 of them where there should have been a penalty for holding. You really only ran a total, and mind you, he had 6 carries of those, right? So 17 carries for 45 yards is what y'all came up with. You could not run the ball. There is no separation. Every number I gave you did not include the quarterback. I gave you what our running backs did.
Hey, that's James, great, but overall it was 28 yards different on 11 different carries. At the end of the day,
Williams, man, hey, man, I'm glad you're here, brother. I'm glad you're here. Lions going undefeated into the bye. You know, it's funny. I can't believe I'm the only one who's going to say this. I think the way they use Jahmyr Gibbs is perfect. I don't think you want to use him more than 10 to 15 touches a game. I think out of college he was about 195. And I don't think that you want to use him 200 to 250 touches in a season. I think the plan is to just sprinkle him. I think the way they used him was actually perfect. I understand he's flashy, he's exciting, but this is a guy I think that you only want to use him 10 to 15 times a game. If I'm correct, it was 21 carries for Montgomery, and I didn't look this up, so I might be wrong. 7 carries for Gibbs, 21 for Montgomery. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's perfect. You want to get Montgomery 3 times as many carries as you give Gibbs. And the reason why is you want to keep this guy fresh. You don't want this guy. I mean, it's a long season. There's no East Carolina on the schedule for the Lions. So I'm kind of surprised. I disagree with you.
I get that, but only 9 total touches. Overall.
9 touches for 60 total yards. That's a 6.6 yard average. You don't think he should get more touches?
I think about 10 to 12 touches a game is perfect. I think the way they used him was perfect, to be honest with you. But yeah.
Dan, I told you stop drinking energy drinks before you do shows. This is
I'm
not
doing
cool.
coffee today, but
Don't get some more coffee.
Problem. Let's be very honest.
Dan is leveled up, and he now snorts crack off of Bertha's.
Oh my God. Oh God. Okay.
Oh man. Oh God. So
off the Bertha's crack because he thinks it somehow gets him higher because it's twice the crack. But it doesn't work like that, Dan.
It just doesn't make sense to me to say that he shouldn't get more touches when the reality is based on the fact that he's averaging over 6.6 yards a touch. Give him the ball.
You realize he's about $195.
I don't give a care what he is. You think this is what amazes me about people, right? You know, everybody always wants to talk about height and all this stuff that don't matter. Maurice Jones-Drew wasn't big, and he had no issues with getting around. Darren Sproles wasn't big; he had no issues with getting around.
Drew was about 215. He was actually
he was 5 foot short. 5 foot what?
He's 5'6", but he was 215.
Oh, okay. What about Darren Sproles?
195.
What about Darren Sproles?
Huh?
Darren Sproles.
Hey, you know, it's funny. Darren Sproles went to high school like 10 minutes away from here. Darren Sproles is like 5'6", 190, 195.
Had no problems. There's so many people
but
that
Darren
disprove
Sproles
this.
Didn't get a ton of touches. And
you know why Darren Sproles didn't get a ton of touches? Because they had a Hall of Fame running back. We do not. And when you have a team that's coming off of a season where you literally ran the ball a significant amount of times, particularly when you got to the red zone with Jamal Williams, and you got 2 running backs who makes the first person miss. You need to get in the ball. It's just no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I thought they played too much into the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs defense, whereas you guys truly struggle with stopping us from running the ball. And if the Lions stayed with the run from the very beginning to the end, this game would have not even been close. And it's disappointing that it was close. But I know y'all going to do the shoulda, woulda, couldas and stuff and negate the fact that, yeah, we can do the shoulda, woulda, couldas on the other side. The Lions had some huge mishaps that saved y'all some chances for giving us some points. But for the most part, every time a drive stopped, y'all didn't stop us. We stalled on our own. And the reality is, you know, many times that you look at it, there were so many plays that was left on the field. You have to get Jahmyr Gibbs more touches. There's no way of getting around it. This same thing happened with DeAndre Swift, and it's a mistake.
I think the way they used him was perfect.
I would have given up, I would go about 15 or between 15 and 18 touches or so. But before I say something to what Luke said, I want to, because I'm not the host of this show, let me pretend that I am. And I want to ask the inverse and ask it about Jerick McKinnon, because he had 1 reception and he had no rushes in this game. And it kind of goes to what Luke said. Like, I think Andy screwed up there.
Yep.
You cannot have Jerick McKinnon having 1 touch in this game. And yeah, he does a hell of a job in pass protection, but you can't have him just having 1 touch in this game. But I want to go back to what Luke said really quick, because you know what? That's what bend but don't break defense is predicated on. Make enough plays, let the offense screw up and get off the field. That's what bend but don't break defense is.
Who's playing the bend don't break defense? You said Kansas City was doing that?
Yeah, Spags. That's what he does.
You broke. You broke bad. We ran a lot of clock off there on you guys down the stretch, in the middle. I mean, I think if you look at y'all longest drive compared to ours, we still had a longer drive. You guys couldn't do much of anything. Bend don't break. Every team is out there trying to break when they bend. The reality is the job of the offensive coordinator, and again, Ben Johnson didn't have his best day calling plays, but the job of the offensive coordinator is to make sure that he exposes all you guys' weaknesses. Where in y'all case, it was the Russian defense. Y'all defense was not there. I was so upset when I'm watching it. It's like 3rd and 3. You're throwing the ball for what? Hey, Chris Jones is not out there. It's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, 4th and 2, and you're throwing the ball on that 4th and 2 play. I'm like, Chris Jones not out there. Run at him. Our offensive line was doing their job to get them holes open. Run the ball, and if they did that, the game would have been close.
Yeah, I think you're forgetting some of those plays where Chiefs defensive players like L'Jarius Sneed were making tackles for loss. Nick Bolton was making tackles for loss. Leo Chanel was busting up plays in the backfield. There were enough of those plays that I think that was what was in Ben Johnson's mind. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs defense only had 2 drives where they didn't get to a 4th down and put it in either the offense's hands or the special teams' hands. 2 drives. And those 2 drives were the second touchdown in the game on a perfectly executed by the defense, but an even better call by Ben Johnson on his mesh call on that touchdown pass. And the other one was the last drive of the game. Those 2 are the only 2 that the Chiefs defense didn't say offense or special teams. Here you go. It's 4th down.
Hey, hold on. I'll let you guys debate some more. Dr. Detroit asked Dan what player on the Lions stood out to me. I mean, obviously Aiden Hutchinson, but this goes back to the Aaron Glenn sentiment, how I thought he should have been fired, but CJ, I didn't think that they would really use him correctly. And they used him all over the field. They used him in a lot of different formations. Branch is another guy, has very similar skill set. And I was really, really impressed with the way Aaron Glenn mixed up coverages, kind of confused Kansas City, and give him a lot of credit. Of course, Aiden Hutchinson did have a really, 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 really good game. So, I I originally was going to ask Keas, and it came up earlier. What does this loss mean for the Chiefs? Do we need to get Chris Jones back? Do we need to get Travis Kelce back? Should we forget about the Super Bowl here?
No, listen, it's a non-conference game. It doesn't affect you guys like that. By the time the tiebreaker for this game gets to you guys, man, that'll be amazing. Like, no, it's a non-conference game. The reality is, you guys are coming off a Super Bowl. You guys are playing week 1. You guys made some mistakes. Most of your starters, like our starters, didn't play the preseason much. No, I feel like if anybody starts doing that now, in terms of this, I never had y'all doing a repeat of Super Bowl anyway, so that part was dead in the water in the first place. I thought you were fortunate to get there when you got there, and some things happened that really lended itself to it. But I think overall, if Chiefs fans and Chiefs work, they started panicking. Oh, you're delusional. Y'all made some bad moments happen, and you took an L. All right, bounce back. But I got to be honest, Jacksonville won't be easy. They won't, because they're going to run the ball, and that's the scary part. That was the chink in the armor for me that I saw with you guys, was that your run defense is not where it's supposed to be. You got 4 tackles for a loss. One of them was a sack, and the other one was a blown snap. So really 2 tackles for a loss in terms of real defensive play. So yeah, and you, Dan, I'm with you. You know I hate Pro Football Focus. When people start talking to me about Pro Football Focus, I almost go deaf, because it's like nobody cares. I have no respect for Pro Football Focus. However, the reality is yeah, if you're panicking over this loss, holy smoke, you don't deserve to go to a Super Bowl. No way. It's a non-conference game.
Keas, How are you, man? Let me know, man. How do you feel? You had to talk me off the ledge earlier before the show. Man, get some logic in here, Keas. Tell me that I'm wrong here.
Yeah, so here's the thing: if you go back and you check out ESPN's win probability for this game before the fourth quarter, 7 minutes, 8 seconds or so left in the game, there were only 3 spots where the Lions had a 50% or higher probability in the game, and that topped out at 54.9%. 3 spots in the game up to that point. Otherwise, the Chiefs, let it all throughout, according to their win probabilities, as high as like 85%, 84%, something like that. Again, and I understand Luke's going to have a different perspective. And I also understand that we've been where, Luke is, where Lions fans are, where the Lions are as a team, and, how you want to look at things. And so, for me, it's when you have to lose. I think this is a good game to lose, because you have a lot of things that are going to improve naturally. And you have things that, hey, listen, as I said, I had this as the Super Bowl matchup, and I had this as a 3-point game when I thought Travis and Chris were going to play. But you're getting young guys, all kinds of experience in the first game, and I think it would have been better had we played on the road that first game, to get all these young kids, instead of you have opening night at Arrowhead and you're playing so many rookies in this game, so many, for all intents and purposes, even Justin Ross, even though he's not a rookie, you might as well put him in there. That I think this was a hard game for them, but that means that there's all kinds of learning experience in this one. I think the offensive tackles, we have to have better run blocking out of them. I think overall the coaching staff has plenty of stuff that's going to make this team better by the time the playoffs start, and that should be the goal. The first goal is make the playoffs. The second goal is be much, much better than you were week 1. And goal 3 is be healthy. If you get those 3 things, you're in a good spot when you get to the playoffs. So, in those regards, I don't think that this is that bad of a loss, and especially because it's a 1-point loss. And I know Luke has his opinion, and I have a completely different opinion. And Dan, your opinion is just that Kadarius Toney is the reason the Chiefs lost. And, Luke and I don't know what we're talking about.
I actually don't believe that was the case. But
I know that.
Actually, I should have started first, because I'm going to tell you what this felt like to me. And this felt like the end of a dynasty. It really did. And it really did. And I'll tell you why. The Kelsey injury was Tuesday. It was at practice. The way I understand it, it was a non-contact injury. Me and Travis Kelsey share a birthday, so I know exactly when Travis Kelsey's birthday is. He'll be 34 soon. NFL players don't turn 34 and have injuries in practice without getting hit and magically play better. There's a lot of NFL players that forget the 40 time, just understand the example. A lot of players run at 4.5 speed at 29 and then enter year 30 and they're 4.7. All right. Father Time's undefeated. I heard this from so many Chiefs fans. Oh, Kelsey's probably going to play for another 5 years. I did a video, top 10 tight ends of all time. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a homer pick. I had Travis Kelsey. Because his 7,000-yard seasons, the Chiefs won the AFC West title. I think Travis Kelsey is very important to this team. I think he means a lot. When you turn 34 and you played in, I think it was 131 straight games, and all of a sudden you miss a game, and it's because you got hurt in practice and nobody touched you, that's a big deal. Take Chris Jones. Is Chris Jones, after we give him all that money, now that he's what, 29 or 30, is he going to play better, or did he hit his peak? He hit his peak. You know what Bill Belichick used to do with these guys? He'd get rid of them. He'd keep his quarterback, and he'd get rid of these guys that when they get older and they already peaked, they're gone. And it worked for 20 years. Now, is it going to work without Brady? We have to find out. But this game to me, it really felt like the end of a dynasty. It felt like that Super Bowl was the peak. Right before the show, Keas had to grab me off the edge. I'm about ready to jump. This felt like the end of a dynasty. It really did. And listen to this. Aaron Rodgers won a Super Bowl 2010. He played 12 more years for the Packers. Did he get back? The answer is no. And that's kind of what it feels like. This is after this game, it felt like the time is up. 5 straight AFC championship games at Arrowhead. Great run in NFL history. Only 3 teams, including the Chiefs, have done this. And it feels like it's over.
Dan, can I ask you a question, Dan? I got an honest question, because this is what happened when you gamble on games and still try to watch them for enjoyment. Are you under the belief that they're going to lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars?
You know, it's actually funny. I'm going to have UCF Jaguar on here Tuesday. And when this schedule came out, that was the game I was most worried about. And I think there's a very good chance the Chiefs are going to start the season 0-2. And once you start the season 0-2, it's really tough, because we got Chicago, a team that I was writing off just like I wrote off Detroit. Then after that, we got the Jets on the road and we got Minnesota on the road. And now I'm looking at that first 5 games where I was like, well, worst case scenario, Chiefs are going to be 3-2, 4-1. I'm looking at maybe 2-3, maybe 1-4. I'm looking at is Travis Kelce, is he going to, because he's going to be 34, is he going to come back and be the same guy? I'll let you guys in on a story. There's Warren Sapp. He went to the Raiders, 98.5 total career sacks, trying to get 100. They play against the Green Bay Packers. Now, for those of you who don't know, there was a long time ago where, for some reason or another, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played in the what was it? The NFC? Was it still the NFC North, or was it the NFC Central?
What game were you talking about?
This was I was talking about the Raiders, but Tampa Bay used to play in the NFC North. Is that correct?
They just played in the NFC Central.
It was the NFC Central. Okay, I can remember. But anyway, Warren Sapp played against Brett Favre quite a bit, and Warren Sapp, he's trying to get 100 sacks, and they line up, and he goes, "I know this play. I'm going to do this move. I'm going to sack Brett Favre. I'm a half sack away from 100." They line up. He goes for his move, and the guard stones him. And he realized then and there, that play, he has to retire. The clock hit, boom, right in the middle of the game. And that's what happens. Father Time's undefeated. This game felt like an end of a dynasty. Am I saying the Chiefs are going to go 0-17? No, I'm not saying that. I'm going to watch all the rest of these games. But I'm looking at this, and it really feels like it's over. I watched 1996. I watched Dallas go to Chicago. Chicago won. Emmitt Smith had this really bad injury. They carried him off on a stretcher, played the next week. Credit to him. And it felt like, I remember watching that game, and it's like, man, that Dallas dynasty's over. Now, keep in mind, they had Switzer there instead of Jimmy Johnson, and you know, the Cowboys were kind of a weird team. But I remember it felt the same way. It really felt like something bad happened. It really, this game, I think it announced the Detroit Lions are here. The Detroit Lions are real. And I think it also symbolized that, you know, that Super Bowl was really goddamn impressive. One of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. What goes up, you know.
Hey, Dan.
What it feels like.
Keas, this is going to be the first time we're going to agree today, Keas. I'm going to agree with you. Dan is definitely smoking crack. He's doing something. There's no way.
It felt like the end of a dynasty. I do want to touch.
We've already agreed a few times. Dan, can I talk you off the ledge really quick here?
I want to answer this question from Slasher. One of the biggest things that I hated about this game is that James Toney, or Kadarius Toney, I don't know why I call him James Toney, going flashing back to boxing for those of you guys who followed boxing. Kadarius Toney was injured during preseason, didn't play. we had this kid, Justin Ross, and for months, all I heard about on social media was how good Justin Ross is. So he played, I think, 3 snaps. They threw him the ball, but you know what he did? It was this really weird thing. He caught the fucking ball. He caught the goddamn ball. And you know what Andy Reid did? No, I'm going to let Tony go back in there, even though, and he's going to drop the pass that may win the fucking game. But yeah, Justin Ross, it really bothered me that Kadarius Toney didn't look like he was mentally prepared. And this is a problem he had with the Giants. He was the last player to pick up his playbook when Brian Daboll took over, something Daboll was not happy with. And he had issues. And then he comes to Kansas City and he has the same injury issues. And he just didn't look like he was ready to play. And I wondered, God, Justin Ross did that whole catching the ball thing that looks like a revolutionary tactic. All I heard about that, now Luke, you didn't hear this because I'm assuming you don't follow Chiefs social media like I do. For 5 fucking months, all I heard about was how great Justin Ross is going to be. And then he does this revolutionary thing where he catches the goddamn football and they take him off the field. I think I never, of all the things that happened in this game, the one thing I didn't think would ever happen, Dan Campbell outcoached Andy Reid. The fake punt, Chiefs looked like they were ready for it. Dan Campbell realized that we need to be more physical than the Kansas City Chiefs. 3rd and 1, Keas hates this play. You know what they did? The play Keas hates more than anything else. They had Blake Bell with that direct snap that doesn't fucking
That was
work.
the weirdest freaking play I have ever seen. And not because it didn't work, but because even I can see how it was going to go because it looked like they wasn't prepared and he had time to call a timeout. And I'm like, just call a timeout. Somebody call a timeout.
We did this in preseason, and it didn't work in preseason. And it really looked like Dan Campbell came with a really, really good game plan. And one thing about Andy Reid is he's always been criticized this over the years is that when he needs to run the ball up the middle, which he should have done, he wanted to get cute. And on 3rd and 1, make a play that didn't work. Where at the end of the game, or the Lions, 3rd and 2, you know what they did? They ran the ball right up the fucking middle, got the first down, ended the game. And that was something that, of all the things that I never thought I would say in this game, was that Dan Campbell outcoached Andy Reid.
Going back to that play, I'll just say this because I was for cutting Blake Bell just so that Andy couldn't do any of those plays. But my biggest thing is I understand why they don't want to have Patrick Mahomes, run a quarterback sneak or a quarterback scrum because of the whole knee, cartilage, the elasticity thing. But put Blaine Gabbert in. It doesn't, when you watch the Eagles and some of these other teams, it doesn't matter that it's coming. It's not a quarterback sneak. There's nothing sneaky about it. Everyone in the world knows it's coming. It's a quarterback scrum. You can't beat it. So just put Blaine Gabbert in there or someone else. I don't care. But stop having Blake Bell line up under center because it doesn't work. But seriously, now can I talk you off the ledge, Dan? I get your point. I understand that you believe that Travis is going to fall off a cliff a lot faster than other people do. But in this case, you're pointing to a freak injury. Anybody in the world can hyperextend their knee. We're not talking about something that shows that he's getting old. We're not talking about something that shows that he's injury prone. He hyperextended his knee. That's it. And so to use this injury to try to talk about that, yes, that's going to be relevant at some point. It could even be relevant this season, but not for that injury. If he plays on it and he does other kind of actual damage, yeah, then then you have something to talk about. But overall, I think the two other points I wanted to make is one, as I recall the schedule correctly, the Chiefs' schedule is AFC West loaded towards the end of the season, which benefits the growth of all the young players we have on the team.
Except for Denver, we played Denver. I think it's week 6 and 8. It's really weird. Except for Denver, that we play the rest of the AFC West later in the year.
So, but it should be set up for the most part that you can win your division and make the playoffs. At worst, you're the 4th seed if you win the division. I think part of the problem, which this segues into, is that Chiefs fans have gotten spoiled on our statistics. You know, Patrick Mahomes opening, week 1 stats, Andy Reid, week 1 and coming off a bye. I say any given Sunday, and I don't just say it to be stupidly cliche. It's because it's real. Every one of these games, we can talk, if this had happened or that had happened from either side of this. But at the end of the day, in every single game, there's usually a small handful of moments that determine the outcome of the game. And a lot of times it's luck. A lot of times that luck is guided by preparation. But still, there are just times that it's guided by plain dumb luck. And I'm not dismissing what the Lions did, and I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying in any given week, you get that. The Chiefs just have to make the playoffs. I think the biggest thing is people want to take numbers and stats, and I'm not aiming, I'm not attacking you, Dan. You're the gambler. I'm not the gambler. But I think people like to take stats and they forget that stats are descriptive. They describe what's happened. They're not prescriptive. They're not determinative. It's not what's going to happen.
They're usually out of context too, Keas. That's another part. They're usually out of context and not even used appropriately to the context that most people use them. And it's one of the biggest issues with the internet, where you can just Google anything and be right. No matter, like me, you can have a totally different idea of what an apple is and be right because of Google. So it's just the reality of it. I think people don't understand like how the football games work. It does take a play here and there. That's what makes football the number 1 sport in this country. You don't get 2 and 3 shots to get it right. You get 1. And you need to make that 1 count.
And sometimes both teams both teams play perfect and still one team loses on that snap. And, as fans, we take the whole aggregate and we want to blame a coach or we want to blame a player for one play when, really, yeah. Anyway, but what Luke was saying here, and I forget the coach, but there was a college coach. Who was it? Was it TCU's coach? They lost last week.
Yep.
And I remember seeing it. There was a quote by him, like something like, "We were 108-0 when we rushed for 230 yards or more," or something like that. Something like that, where he was throwing it out like the stat was prescriptive, like it was determinative. All I got to do is get to 240 rushing yards and we're guaranteed to win the game. Well, no, that's not how the world works.
Yeah, I mean, everybody really thought that Colorado was overhyped, that Deion was talking too much, and like I said, it just came down to who executed in situational football, and the stats ain't gonna show you that. But you like Keas said, I can go back and look at the stats and say, yeah, based on this, hey, this is not.
I tell you, Deion's son it looks like he stepped up to the front of the Heisman race so far.
What? Okay. Oh my God. Damn.
Who would be the Heisman favorite right now?
Damn.
Well, who's the Heisman favorite right now?
It certainly ain't him.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure. If it's a lot of politics in sports, but good grief, if he wins the Heisman, there's something going on. I'm sorry.
I would say as of right now, because the only other player I could say that is up there is
Caleb Williams.
Blank on his name. Caleb Williams. Actually, that wasn't the guy I was thinking of. What's his name? Braden Smith, the Wisconsin running back, had something ridiculous also. But I don't know, man. That's something interesting. Luke, would you be interested? I got 15 other games here. I won't, not a lot of detail, or you can. Would you want to give me your picks? Is there any way I could talk you into staying on and giving me 15 picks
for the remaining games?
Yes. Can I get a win or lose?
Yeah, I mean, I got a pick'em league, so me giving the picks out really gonna make a difference this week 1. But yeah, I pretty much know.
Would you? I mean, you can go into detail or not, but I did a video. I got all the wins and losses. I got the score prediction. I was slightly off on the Lions game. I'm 0-1 for the year, but hopefully I'm not 0-16. But I got the rest of the games here. I'd love to get your guys' opinion. We can come back. Denver Gator, this is a nice pick here. No rookie QB will win this weekend. Every second-year quarterback will win this weekend. That's interesting. I
can give you my picks really quick, because in a minute I got to go upstairs and.
I understand. Well, I'll tell you what. I don't want to hold you up, but let me just fire. I'll rapid fire this here. San Francisco at Pittsburgh.
Oh, I'm finna run them down because I already got them up as a list.
You already got. Oh yeah. Fire away. Yeah.
So Carolina at Atlanta, I got Atlanta. Cincinnati at Cleveland, I got Cincinnati. Jacksonville at Indianapolis, I got Jacksonville. Tampa Bay at Minnesota, I got Minnesota. Tennessee at New Orleans, I got Tennessee. I'm not buying the Derek Carr hype, and they about to change the world talk. San Francisco at Pittsburgh, I got San Francisco. Arizona at Washington, I got Washington. Arizona's clearly trying to tank. They think they're slick. Houston at Baltimore, I got Baltimore. Green Bay at Chicago, I got Chicago. Las Vegas at Denver, I got Denver. Philly at New England, I got Philly. Miami at the Chargers, I got the Chargers. Los Angeles Rams at the Seattle Seahawks, I got Seattle winning that one. Dallas at the New York Giants, I got Dallas. Buffalo at the New York Jets, I got the Jets.
All right, we got a few disagreements here. Keas, I asked if you would. I want to go back to the game because I know you have a few more notes and a few more takes that you want to go through. But I did want to get your picks for the games here. I'm going to go in order here, the way I got them here. Luke, can you hang out for a minute?
Yep, I got a few.
All right, Keas, San Francisco at Pittsburgh.
Oh man, see, I can't rapid fire them like Luke is doing there. I'm
at a disadvantage because I have a spreadsheet and I have my picks down and I have my picks against the spread. And there's only 3 teams I have winning, but not covering. So right. for almost everything is going to be the same.
You know what? I'm going to go with Steelers in this one.
All right. That's actually one of my upset picks is Pittsburgh also. So I'm kind of surprised you went with me there. Tampa Bay at Minnesota.
I'm going to go with the Vikings.
All right. Tennessee at New Orleans.
Going Saints.
Houston at Baltimore.
Ravens.
Anybody picking Houston, by the way? I of all the games that I looked at, I'm like, God, this could be ugly. No disrespect to the Houston Texans. I got Alex in here. I'm sorry, Alex. Of all the games, I got that one just. Jacksonville at Indianapolis.
Jags.
And Cincinnati at Cleveland.
That's going to be a harder game.
Cincinnati.
I took Cincinnati. Originally, I was going to go with the Browns, but once I heard Joe Burrow was playing, I was like, yeah, it's a wrap.
You know what? We didn't even talk about that $275 million contract.
I'm going to go with the Browns on this one. We have not seen one snap of Orlando Brown Jr. or that new offensive line. And I think Myles Garrett could have some fun in this game. We'll see, though.
All
right. Dan's laughing because he knows.
It's funny. I got Cleveland too. I got Cleveland in that. I don't even know if I should ask about this one, but Arizona at Washington.
Washington defeats the Pew Pews.
That one's probably the worst one here. Carolina at Atlanta.
I'm hoping this is a good game, but right now I'm leaning Atlanta. I might be back to Carolina though.
All right, that's fair. Philadelphia at New England.
Got to be Eagles.
All right. Miami at the Chargers.
I'm going Dolphins.
And Rams at Seahawks.
Seahawks.
Green Bay at Chicago.
Bears.
You know, it's kind of weird. All of us, actually, you guys. I'm sorry, I messed up. I got Green Bay, and you guys both at Chicago. I thought
that's because you're a lot higher on the floor than I am.
Yeah, it's no way.
I am. Yeah, I'm. Yeah. Vegas at Denver.
Come on, Keith, make the right
call. I could almost see this going either way. But and I know where you're at, Dan, because this is another place where we disagree on the head coach here. And I'm going to lean Denver because I think what you're going to see, and I'm not going to say exactly like Dan Campbell, but I think you're going to see that's kind of what I'm expecting from Sean Payton in his first game as Broncos head coach. So I'm going to go Broncos.
Yeah, I got the Raiders. That's one of my upset picks. Dallas at the Giants.
I'm going to go with the Giants.
All right.
I know people think I'm crazy.
No, it's funny. It's funny because it's only a 3-point spread. I got Dallas winning, but not covering the 3. I think it's going to be less than 3 points. I know it's kind of weird, but Buffalo at the Jets.
This is another hard one, but again, I'm going to go with the Jets.
You know, all of us say Jets, and they're a 2.5-point dog at home. That's.
But you know why though, right? You know why? What it is for me, it's the fact that every time an opening game come up for the Bills, and I think that they're going to show up and be what everybody make them out to be, they never show up. And the one thing I know about the Jets is with them having Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall at running back, and now you got weapons to throw to. Yeah, good luck. Good luck with that. And that defense was already disrespectful.
You know, I just think the Leslie Frazier leaving is going to leave a hole.
No, it didn't leave a hole with the Vikings.
It's going to happen. No, and maybe it didn't, but I think it's going to hurt with Buffalo. Here's the way. I don't have a lot of faith in Josh Allen. I mean, physically impressive, but that Jets defense could be really good. But all of us say Jets. I was kind of surprised about that. I was convinced one of you guys would be. I have Buffalo as one of my upset picks. I don't have them making the playoffs this year. That's just odd man out. Tough one here. And then Keas, I apologize, man, because we kind of got off track. I know there were some notes that you had that you wanted to go over a little bit about the game. I think the sky is falling. I think this game kind of symbolizes an end of a dynasty. You still feel good about Super Bowl with Kansas City and Detroit?
Yeah, I don't think anything really changes because, again, after week 6, you're getting Charles Omenihu back, and he's going to be that other interior defensive line pressure there. Whenever Jones is back, I think I saw someone saying that he said something about week 4 now, which I'm not sure I understand the strategy with his agents, but at the same time, I think they learned how to do their job by watching a YouTube video of a pop-up book of being an agent for dummies. So, that's neither here nor there. But, you're going to get those two back at some point. Chris Jones has to come back at some point. And adding those two inside on the defensive line is going to be huge. But the experience that all the young guys get until then is going to be nice. The wide receivers got their feet wet in this game. Everybody knows what they need to work on. I can't go much farther in depth because for whatever reason, whenever the NFL puts the all 22 up for mine, it's always later than everybody else's. So like 30 minutes before this game, I checked again today and they finally had it up. But I'll be interested to see, I didn't like NBC's view in this game at all. I couldn't really see a whole lot. So I'll be interested to see what I see in that. and maybe I can have a more in-depth answer, next week. But, I think overall, Snead, McDuffie, Reed, and Cook all played every single defensive snap, 70 plays. Cook had a fumble recovery, and he had 7 combined tackles. The defensive line had 7 pressures. Yeah, it was only on 36 dropbacks, but I think 7 pressures is way more than most Chiefs fans figured. People were talking like it was going to be 0. And at halftime, Brett Veach would go up to Chris Jones' suite with his agents and would get a new deal hammered out, begging him for mercy. FAU had 2 quarterback hits in the game. We're talking about a kid who we weren't really expecting much out of this early. Not that it's a whole lot, but 2 quarterback hits is still 2 quarterback hits. Keandre Coburn had a tackle for a loss. I already gave a lot of my notes. And so I think one of the biggest things that's frustrating is this is another game for Chiefs fans where you look at Dave Toub and a special teams unit. But I think at least one of you pointed out, they actually had the personnel on there anticipating the fake. I think it was one of the linebackers they had on there. They had Schnell. They had, I want to say Gay. Somebody took the wrong gap. I'm not saying that would have changed anything on that play. They were prepared for it. So I guess you can give Toub kudos for that, but the execution was still subpar. And in every phase of special teams, at some point in the last couple of years, it's really went downhill. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to say. But I feel positive. Ask me next week. It might be different. I'm not typically the optimistic one. I'm a cautious optimist, but maybe I'm growing or I'm regressing as a fan. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Keas, did I hear you right? You said that as a team, y'all had 7 pressures?
No, the defensive line.
Oh. So the defensive line as a whole had 7 pressures?
Correct.
Now, I didn't realize y'all did that bad, but good grief.
Luke said he's going to step out. Now, he's going to promote my OnlyFans because I know Luke G's pays for the premium gold membership. $99.
You know I love a bald-headed man. Stop it. Stop it.
Luke, I know you gotta get going. I want to thank you for coming in here, but before you leave, man, I want to hear your final thoughts and words, man.
Look, like I said, football's a game of matchups, and at the end of the day, Dan, I let you off the hook a little bit today because I could have had you eat my major crow.
I got to eat some more crow on your show. I'm going to try to be on Monday.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna set it up
soon. So make sure you get that big bowl, man, because you said you had Cajun. You said
I had Cajun, Prio.
I'm not looking forward to that at all, Luke.
But the reality is this, that game. To me, it doesn't do much if each team doesn't respond accordingly to what happened. If the Kansas City Chiefs goes out there and lose to Jacksonville, which I'm leaning towards because I'm starting to think that Jacksonville will be able to run the ball on them, it's going to get real hectic. The Lions need to follow their performance up with making sure that Kenneth Walker don't go off on them. And they need to beat the Seattle Seahawks, and I expect them to beat the Seattle Seahawks. But overall, man, thank you for having me on. Me is always loving fun.
Man,
as it's so weird because I feel like watching that game, everything that you said was going to happen, the opposite happened.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah.
The absolute opposite. But you know what? At the end of the day, when it comes time for that humble pie. We all got to eat it sometime, and this is one of the times where you as a Chiefs fan got to eat it because I'm telling you, I went back and I watched the video that we did together, and I was like, I just realized that everything he talked
Everything I said was wrong. I don't think I got anything right.
But most of when I was asking you, like, how do you see them losing or winning? It was just all about Mahomes. And when I watched half the games, I mean the coverage for it before the game happened, everyone just talked about Mahomes. It's Mahomes. It's Mahomes. It's Mahomes. And I'm like, okay, you think that's all you need? Sure. And it's gonna bite you in the butt. And like I said, as a guy who's a Stafford fan and has Stafford on the Lions, I can tell you having a good quarterback is great, but you better get him some help. You better find some people who can help him via draft. I think that you guys have neglected that defense too often, and it's starting to catch up to you in a bad way. Overall, man, I got to go play with my sons before they shut it down. I let them stay up a little bit later because it's Friday.
No, I know the deal, man. Luke, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I can't thank you enough for your love and support and you bringing in some Lions fans, even though they rubbing it in. They've been loyal and they've been great. The guys that come in here that are Detroit fans are nothing but fantastic.
Except for that one dude.
What one?
I had to block one guy.
What guy was that?
I don't remember. I'll hit you up. I'll rewatch it and I'll hit
like
you
Detroit Lions talk something. I don't know.
I thought it was Doctor something.
It might have been.
I'll send it. I'll send it to you, Luke.
Okay.
I pride myself that anything goes, but that guy, I was like, it was funny because as soon as I kicked him out, or even the Lions fans, like that guy's a jackass. We don't even want him.
I'm trying to figure out who you're talking about, but okay.
I'll hit you. I'll hit you up here. I probably shouldn't.
All right, listen. It was a pleasure meeting you, Keys, man. I would love to say I'm sorry that your Chiefs lost, but my victory lap is strong and swift with this one, and I'm happy that Andy Reid went to vintage Andy Reid decision making, and I got to see you just for a moment realize, wow, that just happened. It has been a pleasure, gentlemen.
All right. Hey, Luke, thanks a lot, brother, man. I appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
I think Luke forgot that this is, I think, our third time together.
Yeah. You guys are, third time.
Hey, you know what? Can I just say something really quick? Because I think it's interesting. Dan, would you agree that Chris Jones and Charles Omenihu might be the two best players on our defense? I know we haven't seen Omenihu.
Chris Jones
play.
Would probably be number one.
Clearly.
I would think Bolton would be number two. I might say McDuffie, but Omenihu, when he comes back, that's going to be a major addition.
And it's going to be a force multiplier in that you put him inside right next to Chris Jones. If teams double team Chris Jones, Omenihu is going to win inside so fast. In my opinion, could we at least say number one and say Omenihu is probably
Omenihu is our second best. Well, I mean, do you consider? Well, I was going to say he'd be our second best defensive lineman, but I think Karlaftis played pretty good. But it's kind of weird because Karlaftis, to me, I keep thinking he's an outside linebacker, even though the Chiefs drafted him to play defensive end.
It's because they keep dropping him into coverage.
Yeah,
that's the crazy thing. If you go back and you look, they do
playing more of a 3-4. It looks like they're kind of switching to like that 3-4. Colon type of defense. And I say Colon, but he's a student of Wink Martindale who ran a very confusing 3-4 defense that I would kind of like to see a little more of in Kansas City. Slasher, I want to know what your parlay is. If you don't mind, share it with us. Crimson Shadow, I have no idea. Skylar, I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry, I'm just drawing a complete blank. Yeah, Slasher, by the way, Keas is talking me off the ledge. I really do feel like it really did feel like Monday. It felt like the end of a dynasty. Really did.
No, but like seriously, what was your opinion of the defensive line? Because Luke was saying 16. My thought was, okay, you cannot in one breath talk about how great your offensive line is and then talk about a defensive line that, a lot like the offense has been built around Travis in the receiving room, the defensive line has been built around Chris Jones. And yeah, George did a great job in that game, right? He did a tremendous job.
He had a real good game.
In that game. That was the first game we've seen him without Chris Jones, on the defensive line. Like for me, I think a 16% pressure rate is much greater than a lot of Chiefs fans would have expected without Chris Jones there and without Charles Omenihu there against an average line. But are we not talking about Detroit having like a top 3 line? So when you're talking about playing so many backups, because there's no way around it. Chris Jones is starter inside. Charles Omenihu is starter inside. So we had number 2 guys. We traded for a guy this last week who didn't play. We elevated a guy up from the practice squad for this game, and he got fairly significant snaps going up against what's supposed to be a top 3 offensive line, but we're going to trash those guys. Couldn't I switch that around and say, how the hell does a top 3 offensive line still give up 16% pressures when you have a run game like that, when you have a play action game like that, when you have a passing game in general like that? Because I think in trying to insult the amount of pressures that the Chiefs defensive line managed to manufacture in this game, you're downplaying and disrespecting your own offensive line and your offensive coordinator. And for what reason? Like, why are you trying to tear down the Chiefs defensive line that had 2 backup defensive tackles in the game? Like, what's the overall gain from that? For me, 16% was much higher than what I expected.
If you tell me the Chiefs you just go through all 17 games and you say, hey, we're going to hold each one of these teams to 21 points, I'm going to say we're probably going to win about 15 games. And take away the fact that Tony scored one of the Lions touchdowns.
Right.
I keep, by the way, I'm kind of semi being facetious here by blaming Tony. I would have liked to seen Tony play a little less. But bottom line,
did you want to see more McKinnon though? One of the things that I was,
it's funny because you guys were not high on CEH and I was higher, and I watched that game and I'm like, this guy. It was funny. I brought up earlier, like if you're 29, you run a 4.5, and then you're 30, you run like a 4.8, and CEH looks like he runs like a 4.9. I remember at the combine, he ran a 4.62, and he's like, oh, that's a terrible time for me. He looks slow. There is no explosion from CEH whatsoever. I would have liked to see McKinnon play a little more. It wouldn't surprise me if I think P. Ryan, didn't we sign P. Ryan and the rookie out of Tulsa? I'm drawing a complete blank on the kid's name.
Prince.
Yeah, Prince. It wouldn't surprise me if one of these guys gets elevated next week because CEH has nothing. Pacheco.
I think P. Ryan should have made the 50.
I didn't get that, and I would have liked to seen McKinnon get a little more playing time.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, because one of the other things that I did have my notes I forgot about, I'm not looking at them right now, but one of the things I had in my notes was I don't recall the Chiefs using RPOs in this game.
No, I didn't see that either.
And
they also played a lot of 12 and 13 personnel, which I was not expecting without Kelsey. I was really surprised.
It almost felt to me when I saw that, like the lack of separation by the receivers made sense. Of course, I want to go back and watch the all 22 to make sure players weren't held because, that happens a lot when our receivers aren't getting open. But I know the Lions were playing so much in zone. But at the same time, it almost felt, because I don't remember RPOs in this game.
No,
it almost felt like Andy was holding back a lot, maybe for the Jags. And Andy does do that. They do hold back for some teams because they don't want to put things on tape for other teams. And, this game could make sense for all the reasons, we've all talked about not taking too much into it since it's an NFC game. And it could have worked out if they were trying to hold back for this game. It was a 1-point game, and they could have just as easily won. So, but yeah, the no RPOs and the one touch for Jerick McKinnon seems so uncharacteristic for this offense with or without Travis Kelce in it that, I kind of wonder what they put out there. Like, was it intentionally kind of vanilla?
Well, I'll tell you this right now, that Jacksonville game is going to be very important. And if you guys aren't aware, I know I said it a couple times, but I will have UCF Jaguar joining me Tuesday, and I'm really excited about that. I'm going to read some of these comments here. Cowboys beat the Giants and Darren Waller plays. That was a big deal because if he plays, he's not going to be 100%. That I know this is weird, Slasher, but I have Dallas winning but not covering 3 points because I think it's going to be a 1-2 point game, and that's almost crazy to say, but I almost picked the Giants to win that game. I think it's going to be a tight game. It's a fun game, great game for Sunday night. You got Cincy. I got Cleveland week 1. Just a hunch that that defensive line is going to cause some problems for Joe Burrow, who's not going to be 100%. And Keys, we didn't even talk about it. Joe Burrow, 5 years, 275. I think it's like 215 guaranteed. Wow. Why? You know what? It's funny. I thought this might be a problem, and Cincinnati nails it right in the bud. We didn't talk about it. Your thoughts on this?
Hey, I love it because at the end of the day, it doesn't really affect the Chiefs, right? It doesn't affect the Chiefs at all. But what it does is it's going to make it harder for them to keep all their players. And Burrow was saying all the right things, in the offseason. Higgins was saying all the right things in the offseason. Chase was saying all the right things in the offseason. And, Burrow's contract gets done, and it's coming out that T. Higgins and the Bengals are not close on their contracts. So in that way, I'm kind of loving it because I hate the Bengals. Well, I should correct that. I hate the Bengals fans. I hate the spaghetti slurpers. It's not even good spaghetti. It's not even spaghetti. Amber Heard comes to a plate of spaghetti, and she puts the toppings on.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Guess what? We got Gooch joining us. Gooch. The talent is here, man. Oh man. Dude, Funk. Yes, I'm so glad. Yeah, Funk. You come in and I hated on my show, I say all questions are answered, anything goes, and then I get somebody who comes in and I have to kick him off the show. But it was funny. As soon as I kicked him off, you and a bunch of other Lions fans are like, yeah, that guy sucks. So, man. The 3-4 under. It's kind of funny because it really feels like, and Keas started pointing this out, and I kind of disagreed. And now I'm like, Keas has kind of got me convinced that it seems like the Chiefs are switching to more of a 3-4 type of scheme. So yeah, you're right. Slasher, let's see here. This I'm going to keep an eye on this. Ravens -10. I like that. This is a weird one. I got Philly winning. I got New England covering. I had 22-19, so 3 points, but it's hard to do in the NFL. Bills -2.5. I like the Jets, honestly. Seahawks money line, that's a good one. Vikings 5.5, love that. I got Minnesota. Hey, listen, who you're talking to? I had 41. What was it? 41-23 Thursday night Chiefs. So I'm not the one to talk to, but I had 31-16 Minnesota winning. So I really like that one. Derrick Henry over 80.5 rushing yards. Ooh. Saints traditionally have a tough defense, and the Superdome is a tough place to play. But good luck. Good luck. I'm going to keep a star. I got a lot of comments starred, but if you don't mind, Slasher, my social media is below. If you don't mind, can you DM me these, and I'm going to keep track of all these. One Pride 40. Yeah, man. I tried to stick up for this guy, and throughout preseason, it just looks like he's not NFL caliber speed. I mean, Keas, am I wrong here? Does CEH just look like? Does he look like there's probably like 2 or 3 offensive linemen that can outrun him? Am I that bad? Am I mad?
You know what? So what CEH reminds me of is, my best days in football were in 7th and 8th grade. We went, I lived in a small town surrounded by cornfields. We had one black kid on our team. I'm sorry, Gooch, but it's true. One in the whole he and his sister were the only 2 in the whole school, and he was in my grade. And 7th grade, we went 3-2, just like pitches and sweeps, to him. So he was fun to block for. It was like we just scored on everybody, like it was like instead of Derrick Henry running over kids, as he was little but big, it was like Nick was just so much faster than everyone. Oh, yeah. We got to 8th grade, we went 5-0. And then between 8th grade and 9th grade, because I think he was only about 5'11" or so, 5'10", 5'11". I don't know. I don't remember. But somewhere between 8th grade and 9th grade, he started bulking up to add power to his game. And he actually liked to play linebacker more, and he got a scholarship from University of Northern Iowa, who've now had a decent pipeline into the NFL now. Yeah. But, he went there. He was recruited by Iowa State to be a running back and a linebacker. He ended up going to Northern Iowa. I'm not sure, what the reasoning was there, but he bulked up so he could have more power to go with his speed. And he lost all of his speed. That whole part of his game, I would block for a half a second, and then I'd just stand and look for him to watch him score the touchdown. Every time we gave him the ball, it felt like that. But in 9th grade, it wasn't fun anymore because it was, it was all up the middle stuff, and he just didn't have the speed. That's what it's like for me the moment CEH took his first snap in the NFL. And, granted, I'm biased because I didn't want CEH. I got talked into CEH by people who were like, look at the routes he ran in college. The Chiefs are going to utilize him in the pass game this way and that way. He's such a patient runner. He's like Le'Veon Bell, the way he lets his blocks develop. I got talked in to CEH. I was very much a Travis Etienne guy. Yeah. And then Travis went back to school, which pissed me off. He was my guy that year. He's who I wanted the Chiefs to get.
I wanted DeAndre Swift so bad. That was my guy. So it was really weird. I had DeAndre Swift 1A and I had Jonathan Taylor 1B, but I didn't think Jonathan Taylor would fit in Kansas City because he's not a good receiver. Where I thought Swift would be perfect. Yeah. One Pride. Yeah. I really thought DeAndre Swift would be perfect.
Yeah, I would have liked Swift. I just really liked Etienne's speed. And for me, when I saw Etienne, I'm not saying, an exact comp, kind of a shadow of a comp because it's not even a fair one. But to me, when I saw it, I had visions of a cheaper version of Jamal Charles in our offense. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted Etienne. But, like I said, he went back to school. He didn't come out and he went back to school and who knows if Veach and everybody, if it would have mattered at all, but it still kills me. And we're going to see Etienne in a week or so, and I think Luke's right. I think the Jags are going to run it. But I think the other thing is they're going to mesh the hell out of our defense. So it's going to be a good test.
Yeah, Gooch, I'm glad you're here, man. I had to kick somebody off the live stream last night, and I didn't like doing it, but the guy was a troll. It was funny because he's a Lions fan, and he was out of line when I was on Luke's show, and I can't do anything about guests when I'm on Luke's show, but it was a continuation. I hated doing it, but it was really weird because as soon as he was gone, like even the Lions fans are like, man, I'm glad you got rid of that clown. Yeah, I get that, but man, the Saints have a good defense, man. I have a good defense, but I'm going to pull. I'm gonna pull for you. So I'm glad you go ahead and DM me because I want to keep track. I want you to win. Swift was going to be so damn that's somebody who I'm really excited to see in Philly because you got Rashad Penny, you got DeAndre Swift, you signed them on 1-year deals, you still got Gainwell, you still got Boston Scott. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch them in Philly. Can you imagine Gibbs and oh God, oh yeah. But I got to give a lot of credit to Ben Johnson. He really kept the Chiefs defense off balance. The only thing I got right about the game, the only way that the Lions were going to win if they got 5-minute plus touchdown drives, and they had 2 of them. But if you told me, hey, Dan, you're only going to get 2, and that's it, I'm like, oh, we're going to probably win this game by 3 touchdowns. So,
I mean, I don't think they won that way, but okay.
Well, the 2 touchdown drives they had were over 5 minutes. And
but I mean, I don't think that really made a difference in the game. Like, it really comes down to the drops. Like, they could have done whatever they wanted to, and if our guys had caught the balls that they didn't catch, it wouldn't have really mattered.
You're his favorite. You're my favorite Lions fan. Lions are spunky. The one thing I really, really hated, I would have liked to see Justin Ross a little more, and it's funny because I'm late to the Justin Ross bandwagon, but why wouldn't you let him play a little more when Tony just did not seem ready to play, and it's not just a physical ready to play. Sometimes, you miss training camp, you miss practice. He didn't seem like he didn't. When you drop multiple passes, for me, it's a concentration thing. And this was something that plagued him with the Giants, and it was one of the reasons why the Giants were ready to get rid of him. I would have liked to seen after he had that drop to the pick 6. And by the way, the Chiefs used a lot of different receivers. Why not play Ross a little more?
Can I feed off of the conspiracy theory I kind of started earlier?
Yes.
And, you have 7 receivers. I thought this offense looked really bland, as I already said, because we didn't see the RPOs and we saw 1 touch out of McKinnon. What if they already started to work on that Jags plan for next week? And because you have the guys, right? I think it was Veach that said, the plan was to give Ross and Rice and a few of these guys a few series of packaged plays each week. What if Ross was more involved in next week's plan? And, because he's not going to know the whole playbook. I understand he was on the team last year, but he's not going to understand the whole playbook. And even if he did, he's now doing it out on the field in a game. What if next week was always going to be the week that they were intending to lean more towards Ross and a couple other guys, and that was the week they were incorporating these plays that Ross could work on and perfect and run a lot better for that game? What if this is the plan for the entirety of the season to kind of do this? Like, these 4 receivers are going to be more featured in this game. These 3 or 4 are going to be more featured in this game. So instead of, the span of 17 games, Ross is trying to worry about 8, 10, 12, 14 plays. He knows, all right, this week, I'm going to have these plays and I'm going to be featured more, and I need to make sure that I have them down better. This next week is going to be, just a few plays, and kind of do it that way, kind of thinking more of like the whole picture view instead of trying to project 1 week onto the whole picture.
Well,
I could be way off.
Well, here's the thing. I think with the game being Thursday and the Chiefs having a few days rest, I don't want to think that the Chiefs are holding back. Another thing is that Tony wasn't practicing, but Justin Ross was practicing, and he should have gotten acclimated with the playbook during the offseason. We kept on hearing all this hype and all this talk about Justin Ross, and I think he played 3 offensive snaps. You had a guy in Tony who didn't practice for almost a month, and who's been with the Chiefs longer, Ross or Tony? The answer is Ross. Even though Ross was, on IR and everything, he can still come to meetings. He can still learn the playbook. And all we kept on hearing was, Mahomes trusts Ross. Why not have him play when somebody who doesn't look like he's in the game? And that's one thing that bothered me. But the thing with the 5-minute touchdown drives, I thought that controlling the clock was what Detroit had to do in order to win. I thought if Detroit got in a shootout, but of course, Chiefs scored 20 points. And that's not very good. But I was impressed with the defense. I thought they did a good job, and with Chris Jones and Amanihu in that defense, it's going to be really, really exciting. This is Keas' comment. Do you think Montgomery can score 1 touchdown a game in this Lions offense? I do. I'm kind of surprised that I was the only one who thought that the way they used Jahmyr Gibbs was perfect in about 10 touches a game, because that's a guy that you want 10 touches a game, not 15 to 20. But I mean, look, I get it. You see this excitement, and then you see Montgomery plotting, and I get it. But I was kind of surprised. But yeah, Montgomery, Jamal Williams set a Lions record, breaking that Barry Sanders dude's previous touchdown record. I think it was 17 last year. Yeah, Montgomery could get 17. Montgomery's a really good running back. I know you liked him. You remember him. His backup wasn't bad either. Well, actually, I wouldn't. It's not his backup. Was Breece Hall his replacement or his backup?
I don't remember the progression. I want to say it was Montgomery, then Kene Nwangu, who is with the Minnesota Vikings, who I really like as well.
I love
he
him.
never, he was stuck behind Dalvin Cook, but he is their return guy, who I would love to have on our team in a heartbeat. And so I think it was David Montgomery, Kene Nwangu, and then Breece Hall. Like, I hate Iowa State, but they've, for the most part, going all the way back to like Troy Davis way back in the day, they've done a good job with running backs. So
Troy Davis was fun to watch at Iowa State.
But I don't disagree with you on Montgomery, Dan.
Oh, God.
I asked the question because that's what I thought when I saw him running last night. I thought they could give him the ball and he could score a touchdown every game if they wanted him to. And I do think, to kind of what you're saying, I would still, if I was a Lions fan, I would still prefer 12 to 15 touches for Gibbs, because at the end of the day, your best chance to win is with explosive plays. But I also understand using Montgomery to soften up the defense for a good chunk of the game to help increase the opportunities or chances then that Gibbs, when you hand him the ball as a runner, that Montgomery's already softened the other team up for Gibbs to kind of amplify that. I understand that part of the strategy. I think Lions fans would just like to see him, more outside, kind of the way the Chiefs have used Jerick McKinnon when our offense has looked, the most unstoppable. But I don't want to put words in their mouth.
No, I was a little surprised that I'm the only person that think the Lions used to running backs perfectly. That was kind of weird. But Gooch points out something, and this is a fact. 2 years the BakTalk boys called it Pacheco last year, Ross this year. Added to the draft, we are new. Yeah, you guys nailed it, and I was kind of poo-pooing on Ross. And then in preseason, it's like I started watching him. I'm like, this is an NFL caliber receiver. I would have liked to see more of him and less of Tony. And Tony, by the way, is a guy I absolutely love, but it didn't seem like it didn't. I think physically he may be okay. Mentally, he didn't seem right. and I don't know what the deal is, but that was part of the issue why the Giants wanted to get rid of him. So, by the way, One Pride, your story is awesome, but did you make that, or was that, please, by the way, if you want to, you could share it. It's pretty damn. He has it's a parody video about the punt for the fake punt call in 4-2. It was pretty damn funny. Chiefs didn't have their star players. It's as simple as that. I don't think that's it. I think what it was is that the Lions were. I think they came in the Arrowhead with a really good game plan. I think they executed right, and there's a lot of small plays, but I think it's a little more than that. I really do. I was somebody who thought the Lions would be, maybe 9-10 wins. And I thought the Chiefs would still be the best in the NFL. And no, it really seems like the Chiefs peaked in that Super Bowl. And it seems like the Lions, wow, that's a damn good football team. Lions are a damn good football team.
I would give you that right now it looks like there's a valley, but I don't think it's a deep valley. Like I don't think that this is remotely into a dynasty. If the wide receivers do not progress the way we expect them to, or even half as much as we expect them to, maybe this is going to be a bit of a frustrating season that a lot of people expected out of us when we traded Tyreek. But I don't think it's going to get to the point where you're ever going to have, one, I would be surprised if we had a losing record. Two, I would be even more surprised if it happened more than 1 year in a row. But I mean, I don't see it. I think that there were a lot of circumstances in this game. It was a 1-point game at the end of the day. And, you have all these receivers who are not getting separation. You have Tony out there who is getting separation. You have Travis, who's usually the guy who gets separation. And yeah, Tony didn't make the plays, but he's out there because he's the guy who's getting separation. And if you really want to ask the question, it's more of, why didn't we see more Justin Watson and MVS? Because they made big plays.
Do you have the numbers in front? Because I predicted Sky Moore would have 100 yards, and he was definitely short of 100 yards. That's another thing we kept on hearing about with Sky Moore and how impressive he was going to be and how much he was impressing people.
You talking about the receiving numbers for Sky?
Yeah. I predicted 100 yards against a bad Lions secondary, and the Lions secondary did not look bad at all. Sky Moore, what did he do?
He had 3 targets. He had nothing. No receptions, no yards. He had 1 carry for 4 yards.
All right. So Sky Moore slightly under 100 yards receiving in the game.
But, again, this game is weird because you have Jerick McKinnon getting 1 total touch in the game, and there wasn't 1 run. It was a reception,
and
a 10-yard reception.
Pacheco wasn't 100%, and it was funny because I think him and Orlando Brown, I think CEH and Orlando Brown have the same, cobbler or whatever you call it that makes those cement shoes that they run in. I mean, I think we could see 4 running backs in the future, but yeah, CEH really disappointing. Pacheco not 100%. I would like to see the Chiefs run the ball a little more. Yeah, it was a close game slasher, but it really just, like I said, it kind of feels like it's an end of a great run. And listen, the NFL has been going around. I don't know the exact year. I'm going to say 1950. Let's just say 1950 because we can go back that far. 3 teams in NFL history have had 5 or more consecutive conference championship games in their stadium. It started in the 70s with the Oakland Raiders. It doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal because the Patriots had 7, which was the streak was snapped with Kansas City, who now has 5. So, yeah. Dan Campbell has that cracked me up. That was actually funny. If you could share it with everybody, it's really funny. It's really more blaming this on his playmakers. It just felt like something was ending. It really did. It really just felt like something was ending. It just didn't feel like it was the same team that's won more than 12 games or 12 or more games the last 5 years. It doesn't feel like it's the same thing. A team that is dominant. The best team in football the last 5 years has been Kansas City Chiefs. That's not a debate. That's not a something that you can argue. And after this week, it doesn't really feel that way. It really didn't feel that way. But keep in mind, Chris Jones is going to come back sometime. Charles Omenihu is going to come back, which is really going to help because that defensive line played pretty damn good. Linebackers played good.
And Drew Tranquil only had like 13, 15 snaps.
More of him. I didn't get that.
I think we will as the season goes on. It's like, it's what I'm trying to say, Dan. Get off the ledge, right? Like there is going to be growth. And, we're talking about you're measuring all these guys against my NFC Super Bowl pick. At the very least, you got to admit, like they're at least a top 3 or 4 team. We know that they were the number 4 offense last year. And has it been one Pride who's pointed out the last 6 or 8 weeks how strong the defense came on towards the end of last year, and they've just added more talent to it. Yeah, we didn't expect them to be to the point that they're at, but they also had a competitive advantage in that, as I said earlier, Aaron Glenn has had them be a cover 1 team, and he completely switched it up for this game. So, you take that, you factor in no Travis, you factor in this is the first game that like everybody on the offense has played together, because we didn't see that offense out there in preseason. We saw chunks of it. We saw the offensive line and Mahomes and a few of the receivers. We didn't see this offense with all of these receivers in this rendition, and we sure the hell didn't see any of it without Travis Kelce. So I think what you felt, what you feel like is the end of the dynasty is some of this, Andy Reid doesn't lose week 1, some of these things. And so it's a little scary, but we also get a glimpse of what happens when Travis is gone, if Chris walks and they don't replace that talent. But I think we should wait till the bye week to kind of, see players come back. Let's see what Charles Omenihu and Chris Jones look like playing next to each other. Let's see the growth from all the young guys on the defense. If there is growth, we're expecting, or at least I am. Let's see how the wide receivers progress, up to that point. And hell, let's wait until the following Sunday to make sure that I'm not wrong and we actually see the RPO game out there. We see Jerick McKinnon out there. You know what I mean? Because you can't deny not seeing RPOs out there. And they might have been there and I missed them, but I don't think I missed.
I actually, now that you mentioned it, I don't think I said it. Gooch says the game plan was installed the day Kelce got hurt. The plan was to have Kelce, and I think it threw them when they didn't. And that's why it looked bland and maybe trying to win on talent and Dan Campbell.
And they only lost by 1. Like there's so many things in this game, again, it only takes 1 or 2 of those drops to completely change the trajectory of the game. And I'll say this, because Lions fans thought that they had the talent to win this game. Like they completely outmatched the Chiefs. If Dan Campbell believed that, he's not going for a fake punt on 4th and 2 at his own 18-yard line. That's a move of someone who knows he needs a competitive advantage to beat this team. And he did it on a team without Travis Kelce. He did it on a team without Chris Jones, and on a team without Charles Omenihu. He still felt he needed to do it.
I have to give Dan Campbell a lot of credit. There's an old phrase, kicking is for losers. And I know like one of those field goals the Chiefs kicked, I think it was like 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. I remember thinking, I think Dan Campbell would have gone for it. And that was a little frustrating, but like I said, it's guys like Travis Kelce that, there's a lot of people think Kelsey's going to play for another 5 years. When you turn 34 in the NFL and you start getting injured when you don't get hit, it's probably taken something away, and the offense did look bland without him. I was a little surprised Chiefs used 12 and 13 personnel even without Kelsey. I would have liked seeing Justin Ross a lot more. The hometown kids, FAU, I cannot pronounce his name. I'm going to butcher it, but I know it's like Felipe or Felix. We've been calling him
Felix,
FAU.
yeah.
And he actually went to high school in a place called Lee Summit, where I grew up at. But when I went to Lee Summit, there was only one high school. Now there's 4. I think he played in the one I didn't go to. Went to K-State, and he actually played a little more than I expected. When Menahue comes back, it's going to be Karliftis on one side of Menahue, and then they're going to sprinkle in FAU from time to time. And then they did line up in the NASCAR package a little bit. Hannah had a sack on the inside, which I thought was pretty good. Hannah's a underrated situational rusher that we got, a former 5th-round pick out of Michigan. I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago. Hannah's a guy I really, really like. Yeah, I'm gonna send it to Keas. I think he'd get a kick over this. I have my coffee, man. I actually am done with it. I had a couple energy drinks earlier. I have to quit drinking them. It's having an effect on me. Man, Gooch, I love you, man. And Keas adds a lot to the show. So I'm grateful Keas is here. We had Luke G as an unexpected guest. So I apologize. I just sprung that on Keas last minute. So Keas, I'm sorry about that, man. But it was fun and entertaining having Luke here. Yeah, FAU did have 2 quarters. He I thought he was more of a project type of player, but he looks like he's going to have more of an impact this year.
Yeah, I thought FAU and even BJ Thompson, those guys are speed, those are speed rushers. And it's interesting. I'll be interested if these guys, they can bring them along. And, when you think about it, even if they put some of these guys, that's something we never ever talked about. I don't even think Gooch and Aaron and I have talked about, like, I don't know about you, Dan, but when the Chiefs moved Brandon Daly to linebackers and brought in Joe Cullen, to me, I felt like it was a demotion, right? Like, that's the way I processed it, because the things that Joe Cullen is doing with our defensive line, I expected Brandon Daly to do, and the defensive line didn't seem like it ever grew with Daly as the defensive line coach. So when they kept him at linebacker coach, to me, it felt like a demotion. But now I'm starting to wonder, are they trying to get 2 guys in there, right? Kind of like the Chiefs do when they bring in wide receivers to be the running back coach, right? Because they want to coach up the running backs more on some of these other things than running, which might be why half of them are so hesitant to hit holes. But what I'm saying that for is, what if Daly's there to, try to help these guys who might be in a more of a 3-4 role coming up on the line and kind of doing both parts of it, if that makes sense. The dropping into coverage part, but also the rushing the passer part. And maybe that's part of the reason that they kept Daly, but they moved him to linebackers coach. Because to me, I always thought it was a demotion. But you have guys like BJ Thompson, you added FAU, Leo Chanel, the way that, they've kind of used him a little bit. And, it's not really been Spag's MO to bring speed off the edge, but it sure looks like they're at least starting to stock up on some really quick edge rushers.
Well, you know, the Spag special is using the NASCAR package, but it's having a 4-3 look. And it seemed like what Colin's bringing is more 3-4 type of schemes where you have these. It's not the one thing about the Spags defense is that you have it's a pretty bland look with a lot of blitzing. You know, you got 4 defensive linemen, long defensive ends that can get after the quarterback, pressure, you know, obvious passing situations. You move the defensive ends inside, you bring in defensive ends off the bench. But it really seems like now you got these linebackers and you get pressure from different sets. It looks like the defense is a little more confusing than what it's been in the past, and it's something I really like that he's doing because I really didn't think that they would do that. But the Chiefs look like they're switching to more of a 3-4 look. I can't emphasize this enough. I'm a big Wink Martindale fan, and that's where Colin came from. He came from Baltimore, and the Wink Martindale system, it's designed to confuse you. You know, they don't really, even though it's listed as a 3-4 defense, and he's with the Giants, he's doing the same exact thing in New York. It's called a 3-4, but they don't really have a particular scheme. It's designed to confuse you, and that's one thing that Spags defense, you kind of know what you're getting. You know, you're going to get some blitzes. You're going to have the defensive ends. We're going to get after the quarterback. It looks like they're trying to confuse you a little more on defense. It's something I really like, though. And the hometown kid, I was a little surprised he looks this good already. He's a guy that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Gooch says, add to the fact it was the same knee he had a microfracture surgery on in 2013. I'm glad they sat him and lost in the beginning of the season to make sure a Hall of Fame tight end makes the season. I'm all in.
Oh, come on, Gooch. I talked Dan off of this ledge.
It bothers me that.
But it's a knee hyperextension. You know what that means? I mean, it's not like it's a normal injury.
I get that. It bothers me because I feel like he's not, because one thing about Kelsey is he's playing phenomenal. Okay. But I've noticed over the last couple of years he's slowed down, but you haven't really noticed it that much because he has, you know, Mahomes and this awesome offensive scheme. Is he going to hit the wall that all NFL players hit this year? And it kind of seems like if you don't have Kelsey, I really didn't expect the offense to struggle as much as they did. And large part of it is to a really great defensive game plan by Aaron Glenn and the Detroit Lions, something I wasn't expecting. I really was not expecting Aaron Glenn and the Detroit Lions to have – I was expecting them to be clueless week one. I really was, and I could not be more wrong. And I still got to go on Luke G's show and eat some crow about that, but that's on me. But I'm worried that we're going to see a decrease in Kelsey's performance because it looks like if we don't get what was his numbers last year? What was it, like 96 catches, 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns? Like, do we need this type of performance from Kelsey again this year? Or can Tony and Sky Moore and Justin Ross and Richie James, can they pick up a little bit of the slack? Because it didn't look like it.
Yeah, he had 110 receptions for 1,338 yards, 12 touchdowns. 12 touchdowns was the most of his career. 1,338 yards was – looks like the second greatest amount of his career, 2020 being his best, and 110 receptions. What was that?
That's an NFL record for tight ends, that 2020. So, like,
yeah,
1330. So, like, he's got to put up all-time great numbers. And do we really need that at Travis Kelce? Like, hey, Travis, guess what? You got to put top 5 numbers of all time at 34 for the Chiefs to be able to advance. It would have been, I was really hoping that, like, hey, look, Travis, guess what? We're going to be good without you. And it doesn't look like it.
You know, I think, though, the thing with a lot of that, though, is Travis is your running back. Travis he's not doing a whole lot most of the game, right? He has a few routes where he gets wide open out there, like the Justin Watson route, that seemed like a Travis route to me. If Travis was in, I would expect that out of Travis, not Justin Watson. But he's more like your running back, because all he's doing is he's finding the soft spot in the zone, and he's there for Mahomes if he's not the first read, if the first or second read isn't open, he's right there to dump it off to give you an easy 5 yards or so. And if he breaks it for more than that, and he certainly has that ability, then, all the better. You get 10 or you get 15 yards, or he might break it for even more. But even as he slows down, he's still going to be able to find those soft spots in the zone, because he has the spatial awareness and intelligence to visually see that. What's going to be different is his yak is going to decrease, but he's still going to be someone that you're going to be able to rely upon until his speed gets so bad that it doesn't matter how well he can see the soft spots in the zone. Then I don't think it's going to matter, because right now we're assuming that the Chiefs try to make Travis the focal point, whereas it's more like, hey, find the soft spot in the zone. And it just so happens that Travis is the one who's always there to pick up the slack. Whether he's the first read or not, he's always there. So they don't have to feature him. He can always play that role, and he's still going to get a high volume simply because, like we saw last night, outside of Kadarius Toney, most of the receivers weren't getting open. Again, I'm going to watch the all 22 to see if there was reasons for that.
I'm not going to be able to rewatch this game. I was originally going to rewatch this game. I'm not going to. I can't do it. I can't do it. But I'm going to watch a lot of games this weekend. It's kind of weird because I'm not going to go into detail, but I have a system set up here at home. I'm going over my dad's Sunday, so he doesn't have the red zone and he doesn't do the DVR like I do. So I get to spend time with my dad. So it's a win for me. But like after I leave my dad's, I have to go back home and I have to rewatch the game. I have to go and have to rewatch, the games on the red zone and a few other things. I can't wait. Hopefully we get to see Jacksonville and Indianapolis. And don't forget, UCF Jaguar is joining the show Tuesday. I'm very disappointed that I'm not doing any more sports betting for the rest of the year because he's got a promotion set up with a points bet, something that I'm hoping to do. And hopefully in the future, I give you great gambling advice, and do not do what I do and get mad and get angry and do something stupid like make a silly bet right before a game because you're mad. Don't do that. I don't know why I did that. Mad at myself. And as punishment, no more betting for the rest of the year. But I'm still here to give you good sound advice because I will not be emotionally invested for the rest of the year. Before I let you go, Keys, any final thoughts, words, anything at all here for the rest of the week?
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate what I said. When you break it down, the offense scored 14 points in this game. I'm not giving them the credit for the field goals, but if you want to give them the credit for it, fine, whatever. The offense scored 14. You kept saying they also scored 7 for the Lions. So the offense scored 14 for me. The defense gave up 14. And even 7 of that, I don't fully put it on the defense. I don't care what Luke said. I don't care what anyone else says. The defense did their job on the second drive by getting special teams on the field. That's what they were supposed to do, and they did it.
Yeah.
They only had those two drives where they didn't do that. The passing touchdown, that was a great drive, by the way, by the Lions, and the end of the game drive. That's it. So I think when you look at those things and you put it in the context, there's so much context to this game. And when I'm saying this context, I'm saying it for Chiefs fans who might be on the ledge with Dan. I'm not saying it for Lions fans. I'm not telling you that, you can't still be celebrating this week. I'm not saying that at all. Celebrate your win. Just don't celebrate it like it's a Super Bowl, because you don't want to be like a Raiders fan, or, you don't want to be a, how can I put this? I'm not going to say it because if I can't say something respectful, but yeah, I mean, I'm not telling Lions fans to not celebrate it, but I'm also saying, don't go too far the other direction. Don't be a John Gruden and Raiders and start taking victory laps and then get your butts knocked off the next time you face a team. So, I'll just say it that way. Like, I think there are victories all the way around. It's a 1-point game. So, you know what? Everybody, and there's victories there for everybody. So enjoy those victories. But what I would say is I have a harder time being sympathetic to the fans that are like, you know what? I wouldn't even care if you had 19 starters out. A win is a win. Like, I think that's the wrong way to approach thinking about a game. Like, you want a legit win, right? You want a legit win. You don't want give me's, and you don't want wins that don't seem at least halfway legitimate. I think all the way around, great game. I think everybody's got plenty to be happy about. At the end of the day, it's one game out of 17, and don't dissect it too much one way or the other. That's what I'd say.
All right. Hey man, that's a great final thought, and great final way to end the show. Don't forget, again, I'm going to have UCF Jaguar here on Tuesday. He's got a promotion with PointsBet that I will have available for you guys if you want to take advantage of it. For those of you who do sports betting, we are going to break down the Chiefs Jaguars in some detail. Jaguars Colts will play Sunday. Kind of an interesting game because Jacksonville has struggled in Indianapolis. Of course, the Chiefs did last year too. So let's see what happens. Guys, I'll be back on Tuesday with UCF Jaguar. Hope to see everybody then.
Dan, are you really not going to bet for the rest of the season?
Nope, I'm done. No
I bet you $5 you do.
Keas has a $5 bet. All right, guys, have a good weekend.